Thought appears to be a powerful modulator of what we do and don't do. What are the wise and unwise uses of thought?
So as we started off when we were speaking about all of form, and so thought is part of form and part of the survival of form. We see, experience and know in relationship to our surroundings and each other as part of form. There's thought that's creative, inspirational. That's very beautiful. Untainted, really, is the word that's here. And there's thought, as we've been speaking of, thought that's habitual and actually unnecessary. So a thought arises and we follow, and a thought arises and we follow. We don't even notice we're following it until we stop and we see that the thought arises and we follow. Prior to that, we don't even know that's going on. We think the thoughts have a life of their own, but really something arises in awareness and it's made up of a content of words and letters and sounds, and we attach meaning to it. We follow it, we attach meaning to it, but really the thoughts are empty. And the following of the thoughts causes so much suffering. But the thought that comes from silence, from awareness, from grace, that's clean, that's not motivated by survival, not motivated by fear, that's not laden with emotional content. That type of thought is clean. The emotional laden thought is suffering. And really, when we stop touching thought, we notice that not much thought arises. Not much thought is necessary to live this life, to live from our heart, to be true, to be in harmony with each other and nature and the world. Not much thought is needed. Really, the silence of grace informs everything. And from this silence, because as a human being we use language, words arise, poetry arises, music arises, art arises, creativity, architecture, science, incredible investigations and explorations and, you know, all kinds of things come through the form, through thought, but not necessarily by trying to think it out. You know, we have Einstein as an example of that, who clearly says that in the times where he was trying to think something out, he would stop. He would pause, he would meditate, he would go into silence, he would sleep. And then the moments of inspiration would arise, the answer would arise from the silence of grace. So that's really, in a way, this difference with thought, that thought in and of itself is no problem. All thought is coming from this silent grace, the same as the form is appearing from silent grace, the emotional content, everything is appearing and disappearing. It's whether we follow it, it's whether we suffer with it, or let it be this clean, clear, pristine expression of grace itself.
There's a real discrimination needed there, isn't it, to see the difference of where a thought is coming from.
Discernment.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it takes the willingness to stop and discover what's here regardless of thought. Deeper than the form, deeper than the sensation, deeper than the emotional content. This still, endless, and moving. So I say still, but also full of life. This grace. When we give our attention here, when we are willing to discover this that's here, the discernment's clear, the discernment's easy. Because right here, right now, we can palpably feel this silent grace in us, as us, through this life. Nothing needed. No suffering. So there's a clear indication when we're running, when we're moving, when we're trying to get, when we're avoiding. You know, there's a clear movement of suffering. And I'm not speaking of, we're sobbing in the corner or destitute, that kind of suffering. I'm speaking about day to day, the suffering. It's almost overlooked. It's so habitual, the suffering that's going on. And it can stop when we stop and give our attention here. And we can clearly see no thought is necessary to experience the truth. We don't have to stop the flow of thoughts. They'll just come and go. We just give our attention here to where we are. And then this resolve to really give our attention here. Because if I use the word stay here, and I do use those words, it's almost like a doing. Then how do I stay here? And what if I don't stay here? What if I can't? So instead, if we just give our attention here to what's already here, not something that has to be found, we give our attention here to what's already here. Then the discernment comes from here already. And this discernment isn't another action. It's clear, like that example that I gave. Feeling, sensation, thought, stop. Causeless joy. Simple. The noticing and the stopping. And then in a way, the noticing is the stopping. The noticing is the stopping.